So Elon Musk found a whole closet full of Stay Woke shirts at the Twitter HQ. And boy oh boy, did the Mott and Bailey fallacy come out in full force. People came out of the woodwork with being woke just means being a good person. How can you have a problem with that? Because that's what everybody thinks of whenever you think of woke. Just for some examples. Not being woke promotes racism, misogyny, and homophobia, along with the fear of the other. In which I find that incredible, because fear of the other is why they're having a meltdown. They are literally scared to death that other opinions will be allowed to be expressed on Twitter. Oh no siree, there's certainly no fear of the other going on in the woke culture. We certainly don't see it in this Harvard Magazine article saying, abolish the white race. Can you feel the inclusion in that? And here's another tweet. Holding the line against racism is a good thing. If you are anti-woke, you are pro-racism. Racism does harm. Wokeness does not. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the idea of the Mott and Bailey fallacy, it is very well displayed here. The only reason you could ever be against us is if you're for the evil thing. Being woke is against racism. And then, whenever they do anything at all, no matter how crazy it is, if you speak out against it, well, then you must be pro-racism. It's a lot like the way that Antifa or anti-fascism works. No matter what they do, no matter whose business they tear down. If you say, hey, that's a bad thing, destroying property is a bad thing, well, you must be a fascist. You see, that's that easily defended position. Oh, we're just against fascism. Oh, we're just against racism. But then they go out and they do things that they know everybody knows is crazy. But nobody wants to be labeled a racist. Nobody wants to be called a bigot. This is the way that they've been operating for 8 or 10 years now. They don't really have arguments. They just threaten you with a label. Do as we say, or we'll call you a bad thing. And then like in this tweet here. Wow, you are really showing your true colors, Elon. Woke is empathy and understanding of injustices, racism, and the LGBTQ community. You are obviously lacking in those social areas. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go through some of the things that the woke have brought to us. Do you remember the singer Adele, Rolling in the Deep? A lady with an amazing voice who was overweight until she decided to get healthy. And how did our woke, compassionate people respond? By attempting to cancel her. And whenever I say cancel, it doesn't mean that they said bad things about her. No, they wanted her purged. They wanted her to not be able to sing at shows again. They wanted to take her down. Why? Because the idea of being healthy and being at a healthy weight is ableist, which is, of course, rooted in racism. So if you think that being of a quote-unquote healthy weight is a good thing, well, then you're obviously just a bigot. Whenever you walk into a doctor's office and you're complaining of problems breathing or any other health issues, and they say, well, it could be because you're 500 pounds. That doctor is obviously saying that to you because they are some bigot. They are just a bigot. It can't be centuries of research into the idea that obesity causes health problems. No. You see, no. The woke tell us that you're healthy no matter how much you weigh, because that's what they feel. Trust the science, am I right? How dare Adele decide to make a good, healthy lifestyle choice for herself, to extend her life and to make herself feel better? Now, obviously, she must be a racist too. Or take artist Babs Tarr, who drew herself as a superhero with a tan, her skin being slightly darker than her real-life skin. Now, could this be somebody just enjoying a fantasy and using their talent to bring it closer to life? No, it's bigotry. It was bigotry and she needed to be purged. There were calls for her not to be able to work anymore. Critical Role was contacted to try to force them to cut all ties with the artist, because that's what good, compassionate people do. Now, you might be wondering why I'm even bothering to talk about morons spouting their opinions on the internet. Well, you see, that's exactly what annoys me. is that they're not morons. They're not stupid. If they were stupid, I could forgive them. I can forgive a stupid person. This is being completely disingenuous. They know what woke means. It means control. It means silencing the other. And no, not just racist and bigots. It's anybody who has a slightly different opinion. Anybody who does anything you don't like, such as draw yourself with a tan. Or people following centuries of study into health and science to tell people, hey, you need to lose weight or you're going to die early. No, those people need to be shut up, right? Because that's what empathetic people do. They're disingenuous. They know what people mean whenever we criticize the woke. They're Puritans. Only one opinion is allowed. Only theirs. Everybody else needs to shut up. And then they try to pass it off as, oh, well, anybody who dares speak out against us, they're evil people. They're like the Puritans of old. Anybody who dares say that we're wrong for putting these very tight, stringent rules on people, this very nearly impossible to follow moral code, oh, well, they must worship Satan. Like this tweet here. How horrible. No swastikas? The horror. I mean, being woke means your eyes are open to systemic bias and discrimination. Just flat out call them a Nazi. And they do that a lot, if you've ever noticed. Anybody who is slightly outside of, anybody who colors slightly outside of their lines, man. And you could be asking, well, what's the point? Why would they do this? Well, take, for example, Hollywood currently. It's become a big industry to guilt people into watching your movies. Who needs writing? Who needs script? Who needs to put effort into the movie? All that you have to do is just say over and over again, we've got representation, we've got representation, we've got representation. And then it doesn't matter how poor the show is. You've got to pass. It's a great show. And if anybody dares think there's anything wrong with your show, one canon break, one plot hole, oh, well, obviously they're a bigot. They got a problem with the representation. You will watch it, you will love it, and you will give us your money. You will buy the subscription, you will watch the show. Did you watch the show? Why not? Why didn't you? Do you got a problem with representation? Gosh, the only people who have a problem with representation are racist. It's like they have to take several degrees, because immediately the first thought that hit my head, well, if you do have a problem with representation, you must be a racist. That's not the point. The point is that if you got a different problem with the show, like if it breaks canon, or if there's a gaping hole in the center of the plot, and you bring it up, they don't counter that point. What they say is that, no, you got a problem with the representation, therefore you're a bigot. There's been movies out there where they've literally said, hey, white men, this movie, calling out one specific gender and one specific, imagine a movie coming out and saying, hey, you people of this race, this movie isn't made for you. And then they turn around whenever the movie bombs and say, well, it's obvious the movie bombed because of misogyny, because the men didn't come see it. You told them not to. And then whenever you point out that this seems to be an industry now trying to guilt people into normal, everyday, average people, handing their money over to billion-dollar corporations, and if they don't, then they're horrible people. And I don't want to get too political, but if you ever told me that the day would come whenever the left would tell you that if you didn't give your money to a billion-dollar corporation, you're a horrible person, if you would have told me that day would come, I would have slapped you. I would have said there's something wrong with you. Oh, but sorry. It's all about seeing the injustice in the world. It's all about being sympathetic and having empathy for those marginalized people. It has nothing to do with making money or control or telling people what to do. And don't even try to tell me it's not about control. Don't try to tell me that it's not about telling people what they can and can't do. Oh, you say, it's all about promoting equality and they don't want to have the fear of the other. Oh, okay then. Then maybe you can explain this to me. Why do they dictate to people what they're allowed to wear and what they're not allowed to wear based on what race they are? Oh yes, cultural appropriation. Certain races are allowed to wear certain things, and certain races are not allowed to wear certain things. Oh, I'm sure that will bring everybody right together. Let's give people different rules based on their race. Oh yeah, that's worked out wonderfully throughout history. For the love of God, they'll even tell you which hairstyles you're allowed to have, deciding that historically this hairstyle belonged to blah 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 blah. This is like saying that the culture that invented the wheel should be the only ones allowed to use the wheel. That wouldn't set us back. And you see, these are the type of things people are talking about whenever they talk about woke. But they try to hide behind, no, we just mean don't be racist. That's their Bailey. I hope I'm getting the right one. But that's their Bailey. That's how they defend themselves. Oh no, we're just against racism. We're just against bigotry. We're just against sexism. That's all it means. That's all it means, bro. You gotta believe me, bro. I'm serious, bro. It's just about fighting against racism, bro. Really. But then you're going to go out and tell some little girl that she can't dress up as Pocahontas for Halloween because she's the wrong race? Imagine being that cruel. I mean, how do these people survive Halloween whenever they're walking down the street and they see some kid dressed up as Optimus Prime? You're not an automaton. Take that off. Imagine needing that much control over other people. And these people, they'll swear up and down that the right, the conservatives, want to stop people from being gay or bisexual or what have you. In which, by the way, all of the conservatives, libertarians I'm friends with really don't care. But then these people go right behind them and tell you what you can wear, what hairstyle you can have, what costume you can wear. Speaking of talking about which sexualities people are allowed to be, oh, did you see what happened with Bayonetta? I'm sorry, spoilers for anybody who didn't see it coming, but it turns out Bayonetta is straight. And every timeline or multiverse or whatever was going on in that game, she ends up with a man. And boy, oh boy, were people upset. How could she be straight? It's ludicrous that she's straight. People losing their mind, upset and offended that she's straight. And why? Why were they upset? Well, because she's a strong, competent woman. And of course, no strong, competent woman would ever want to end up with a man. Men are the oppressors, of course. And, you know, we're all stupid. And all we do is walk around and pick our nose and pull our dicks, right? So, yes, they have come full circle. Now, quite frankly, they haven't... Never mind, they have done it to people. But for this example, they've done it to a fictional character trying to dictate what sexuality that character has to have, regardless of what the artist envisioned. But for now, let's keep on the theme of control. Let's not forget, these are people who claim that dissent is violence. If you disagree with them, you're harassing them. Some even going so far as to consider dissent or disagreement to be a threat. But quite frankly, they call it all violence. They said flagrantly that words are violence. And the reason why they were saying words are violence was so that way it could be regulated by law. See, the argument pretty much goes, it's illegal to assault somebody because you're doing physical harm to their person, right? They own their person, they own their body. You can't just up and hit people. And so they tried to grab a hold of that and say, well, words are violence too, because you're hurting my feelings, which is really where the whole fuck your feelings thing came from. And so words became violence, but then that wasn't enough. Oh no, contraire mon frère. Then it became silence is violence. That's right. Not only were you not allowed to disagree with them, now you weren't allowed to just stay quiet. Now, as a little caveat, for a time they tried the phrase, silence is consent. But they had to quickly abandon that when they realized it was Bill Cosby approved. But seriously, what does that mean? You're not allowed to disagree with them because that's violence. That's an assault on their person. And according to them, they believe that should be illegal. That's hate speech to disagree with them. But you also can't remain silent, because that's violence as well. It's violence against them to not participate. And so therefore, the only option that leaves is that you have to say what they want you to say when they want you to say it. Now, for those of you who might say, HP, you're jumping the gun on this. Am I really? You have to remember, these are the same people who said that once they accuse you, you are guilty. Don't believe me? Remember Me Too? When they went into their whole believe all women slogan. Once you're accused, you're guilty. If you think that that's BS, you don't have to look any further than the Johnny Depp trial. And you might say, but Johnny Depp won that trial. Yes, he went into trial and had to prove his innocence. Typically in this country, a person has to be found guilty. You are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But it's been switched. You know, these woke mobs, the oppressed, right? They call themselves oppressed, somehow flipped the whole judicial system to where a man had to prove himself innocent. And it's had to happen several times. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is simply because these people are controlling, or they're attempting to control what people say when they say it. You have to say what they want you to say when they tell you to say it. It's about control. There is no empathy there. Don't just stand back and suddenly say, "Oh no, we're just against inequality. We're just against racism. We're anti-racist. We're just like they're just sitting in their homes quietly being not racist, right? That's what they try to tell you that they're doing. And I'm so sick of it. Nobody calls it out. They just act like, oh, just little old me, I didn't do anything. They love to go after people. They love to go after people. And I'm not talking about just going after people. I'm going way off script here. They don't just go after people and insult them on Twitter. I wouldn't mind that. Go ahead, call people names on Twitter. I think that crap's fun. But they try their best to get people fired from their jobs and make them unemployable. They will call potential employers and harass the employers. They want to ostracize a person from society and get them to where they can't even put food in their mouths. That's what they want, because somebody said something they didn't like, which I'll go into a little bit later. No, you know what? Never mind. I'll go into it right now. It's fresh on my mind. Pedro Pascal came out and pretty much said that all Republicans are white supremacists. He said this on Twitter. His tweet stood. Nobody did anything about it. Yeah, sure. I'm sure he caught a lot of flack from a lot of Republicans. But you know what he got? He got his little bell dinging a whole bunch of numbers with a bunch of comments he might not like. And so, then not very long afterwards, Gina comes out with a tweet of her own. The image she posted was basically saying that fascism rose in Nazi Germany by picking a group of people and othering them, seeing them as inhuman, as not people, and then making it okay to do whatever you wanted to them. And so the woke took this as her calling them Nazis. And so, while it was completely and totally okay for what Pedro did, that was totally fine. But for Gina, it could not stand. They pushed into a multi-billion-dollar corporation, fired her from her job, her acting career on Mando, which, by the way, could you imagine being so oppressed that you can tell billion-dollar corporations what to do, along with billion-dollar tech companies, billion-dollar media companies, billion-dollar news corporations? And by the way, just in case you're unaware, Gina Carano is a lady. She's a woman. And the woke, they say they're feminists, right? Well, they believe in uplifting women, and they respect women, unless they step out of line, unless they step outside of the kitchen, unless the woman doesn't know her place, which they're like that with everybody. They're protecting the vulnerable and the marginalized, unless they step out of line, unless they don't have the exact same opinions. And Gina's big crime was that she thought that the COVID mandates were going a bit too far. Not that they should be abolished completely, not that they should all be done away with, just that they were going a bit too far. She had a different sliding scale for how far we should go with the COVID regulations, and since it was slightly off from the extreme that the woke wanted it to be, because the woke only understand extreme, you have to push it as far as possible, because if you don't, if you say, well, we shouldn't go that extreme, somebody's going to say, no, it should be the extreme, and you're a horrible person for not wanting it to be there. They got her fired, and they put enough pressure on all of media to try to keep her from being hired by anybody, because that's what kind, compassionate people do. Because it's not about control, right? It's not about controlling people. The woke are just simply, wanting to live their peaceful little lives in their little homes, sitting there not being racist, right? And of course, anybody who's against somebody being completely removed from their job and being made unemployable because this mob just follows them around, this lady, by the way, oh, well, they must be bigots too. That's woke. And people can scream, well, she did this, she did that. The whole thing really started whenever somebody knows that she didn't have her pronouns in her bio. And they started trying to push her to put her pronouns in her bio. Now, Gina was a UFC fighter. She's kind of a tough lady. So, as a joke, to troll them, she put beep bop boop. Oh, Jesus Christ. God have mercy on the world. She put beep bop boop in her fucking bio. What will we do? It's the end of the world. She's literally worse than Hitler. What will we do? And you might ask, well, this is just one instance. No, it's not. God only knows how many people they've actually done this to. I mean, do you remember Thunderfoot, the YouTuber? They tried it with him. Do you remember that person? Probably not. And if somebody who we don't remember, they tried that on, God only knows how many people they've tried to do this to. How many people are carrying around a label with them now that they're a fascist, a bigot, a homophobe, because they said something that the woke didn't like. I'm thinking of Kindergarten Cop when that little boy said, boys have penis, girls have vagina. God help him if the woke ever find out who he is. Hey, World of Warcraft fans, do you remember listening to Kel'Thas Sunstrider giving that impassioned speech when you were getting ready to do the Sunwell raid? Oh, well, guess what? He was accused. Somebody made an accusation at him. Of course, the woke immediately ran with it because he's a man, so of course he's guilty. He's guilty. The idea that he should get to prove himself innocent, well, of course, that's patriarchy. Me and the rest of the members of the patriarchy, we meet up every Wednesday and we discuss how we're going to dominate women by allowing men to have the opportunity to prove themselves innocent in court, just like women get the opportunity to do whenever they're accused of something. Ladies should get to be innocent until proven guilty, but men gotta be guilty until proven innocent, because equality. Now, of course, I can't imply that that's not equal, because feminism means equality between the sexes. That's the definition, right? Montanelli fallacy. Gotta hide behind that definition, right? It means the advocacy for equality between the sexes. So whenever they ask for something that men don't get, oh, well, it's still equality because definition. Because as we all know, the dictionary has never, ever, ever changed the definition of a word to fit an agenda. That's never happened before, ever, in the history of ever. But yes, Quentin Flynn, replaced as Kel'Thas voice actor in WoW, despite judge ruling sexual misconduct allegations came from an obsessive stalker. And let's not forget about Vic Mignogna, who voiced Broly in DBZ. One of the most popular characters in the show, in spite of the fact that he's rarely in it. And then all these people he thought were friends turned against him. From a single allegation, he was fired from his job, And that wasn't enough, though. It wasn't enough to have him fired to not work with those people anymore. No, 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 no. They kept pursuing him. Every time he wanted to go to a Comic-Con, it would get inundated with phone calls, begging the venue not to allow him in. And all these fellow voice actors that he thought were friends, all of them turned against him. Not making accusations. There were only a few who made accusations. But the rest of them, whenever he decided to go to court for defamation, sorry, I have a hard time saying that word, they were like, oh no, you shouldn't even go to court. I mean, what's it going to do? You know, just basically telling him that nobody wants to work with him anymore, so get out. The reason why, really, he was the other. They couldn't stand having someone around who might think a little bit differently than they do. And of course, he shouldn't have taken it to court, because that would be defending himself. You know, and defending yourself is anti-woke. Defending yourself from the woke means that you must be a bigot, right? The woke should rule with an iron fist. They should tell you what to say, when to say it, and you should say it when they tell you to say it. You think what they tell you to think. They rule with an iron fist. And that's why they're so upset with Elon Musk. They loved this guy not too long ago. But then whenever they went after him, and he took their toy away, that he took away Twitter, oh, now he's the bad guy. All of a sudden, all these bad things about him is coming out. But yet, if you look back just a few years, oh, he was the bee's knees. He was bringing us the electric car. Oh, but you might say, HP, come on. They're not trying to tell people what they can do when they have to do it. They're not telling you what to do. Oh, really? Now, you got to remember, these are the people who were the champions of Me Too. They were telling us that people need to be educated about consent. Now, of course, I think pretty much everybody understands the idea of consent, but the woke tell us that only they really understand it, right? And they have to educate everybody about how consent works. Ah, yes. Having genital preferences are transphobic. You know, honestly, I can't think of a sensitive way to put this. I mean, really, the sign says it all, really, doesn't it? Hey, guess what you're going to have to do? Or if you don't, you're a bigot. You're a horrible, evil, fucking bigot. I mean, really, do I even need to say anything in here? They're basically saying that, well, you don't technically have to have sex with this person, but if you don't, then you're a horrible, evil person, and we're going to call you out for it. You're going to get a whole bunch of mean tweets, which typically that's fine, but then we're going to contact your employer, because that's how canceling is done. But this seems to me like quite a bit of coercion, telling people, hey, you have to have sex with these people. I don't like the idea of anybody telling me that I have to sleep with a certain in particular person or else I'm a bigot. Okay, that's woke. That's woke right there. Tell me it's not about control. Tell me it's not about control. Go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me more about how woke is empathy and understanding of injustices. Huh? Is that why? Is that why it's important to say that genital preferences are transphobic? Huh? If you're anti-woke, then you're pro-racism. Oh, okay. So yeah, if I don't sleep with who you tell me to, then I'm apparently pro-racist. Yeah, okay. Not being woke promotes racism, misogyny, and homophobia because you won't sleep with the person they tell you to sleep with. That's woke. And you know what? I have a whole folder more of stupid shit that woke people have said. And one day, I think I'm just going to go through it. And it's not going to have any specific order to it. It's just going to be going right down everything that they've said and refuting it. But basically, I'm doing this today. The whole point of this video is to refute this idea that it's just, oh, being woke is just being against racism. No, it's not. It's about control. Now, you might want to ask, okay, well, HP, how do you define woke? Well, I actually posted it here. A religion whose hierarchy is determined by nebulously defined perceived victimhood, demands ardent conformity of opinions. They are correct by faith. The slightest deviation of thought must be ostracized from society. That is how I define woke. And I'm just going to go through a couple more little things that I found that I really didn't find a way to fit into the rant, but I feel like they're important to bring up. Such as this tweet here. Elon Musk taking over Twitter is a step towards a fascist takeover of the USA. Again, they call anybody who says anything other than what they want to say is a fascist. Think about it. Really sit down and think. Do you have one single conservative opinion? One opinion that might be looked upon as less than far left? Because if you do, according to these folks, you're a fascist. I think woke people have really bad ideas. I don't want to shut them up. Keep putting your dumbass ideas out there, and I'll keep making videos talking about how stupid they are. Now, here's a really good example of woke. Greta Thunberg. It's time to overthrow the West's oppressive and racist capitalist system. The entirety of capitalism is racist. See, so whenever they tell you, oh, it's just about not being racist, right? It's about taking down capitalism. And I've seen some that go even further. I'm sure I can find screenshots somewhere of talking about how Western society needs to be dismantled in order to end racism. Oh yeah, I almost completely forgot about this. Here's a voice actor who let woke ideology drill its way into his head, and he gave up a voice acting job because the character he was playing wasn't white. I want you to think about that for a second. A white guy refuses to play characters who are not white. Now, saying that to you today means one thing. Now imagine 30 years ago if I had said, hey, we got this white voice actor, but he won't play characters who aren't white. What would you have thought? You would have called the person a racist. I only play white characters. I'll only voice white characters. That's insane. Phil Lamar is the iconic voice of Aquaman. Phil Lamar is the iconic voice of a lot of characters. He's a legend in his own time. I don't care what race he is or the race of the characters he plays. What I care about is the man is absolutely legendary in his skill. And if somebody told him that he's not allowed to play a character because of his race, that would be a crime, and I would be one of the first people speaking out against it. But again, the woke ideology is, oh, well, people should be allowed to do certain things based upon their race. This race is allowed to do these things. This race is allowed to do those other things. There's a word for that. Ah, yes. And I actually laughed at this one. Twitch streamer Hassan gets official pass to say cracker from Wheat Thins. It's a derogatory, cracker, of course, is a derogatory term to describe an entire race, which is fine. I don't care if he says it. I'm not offended by it. But I'm sure he would find other derogatory terms to be offensive. But in the end, quite frankly, I'm just including this one for levity. I legitimately laughed the first time I saw it. I was like, okay, that's clever. That's kind of cute. As much as I hate Hassan, he can go fuck himself. Finally, I want to end on this tweet because it's not only a great example of the Mott and Bailey fallacy, but it's a great breakdown of their strategy overall. This person, of course, responding to Elon Musk, saying woke has a very specific meaning in black circles. Immediately, boom, laying down the trap card, right? So immediately, the first thing that pops into your head is thinking, if I disagree with this person, if I try to refute this person, I'm going to be called a racist. He's already laid it out there, right? These t-shirts were worn by a small group of black Twitter employees, for a very specific purpose. Here's a suggestion. Educate yourself first. Spout mouth diarrhea second, if you wish. So you see what this person's already done. They've laid the trap. If you disagree with them, you're a racist. But then also, once again, the Mott and Bailey fallacy. They are jumping, they're traveling with Doc Brown. They're jumping in the DeLorean and going back to a definition that woke had maybe in prehistoric internet age. But you know, this person does have a point. I remember playing football back in high school and hearing the black students often talk about woke things and how things need to change. Such as, the PlayStation was such a great console, but Tomb Raider was a very problematic game. Lara Croft was just too sexualized with her polygonal boobies. How Crystal Dynamics really should have covered her up and made her taller and give her bigger muscles and broaden her chest and give her an Adam's apple. Then, you know, she would have been a good hero, a good role model for women. Yeah, that's the ticket. That's what we talked about. We also talked about how the idea of calling somebody a woman might be exclusive, and we need to come up with more inclusive terms, such as birthing person, or a person with a self-lubricating front hole. To be quite honest, we might have called a few girls self-lubricating front holes. Oh my God, I'm going to get crucified upside down. For those of you who may not have figured out, I am being sarcastic. I never once heard anybody speak of such things. You know, overall, and I'm sure nobody's listening at this point, but whatever. It's a lot like mansplaining, right? They tell you, oh no, mansplaining is just whenever a man explains something to a woman that she already knows. But then, whenever you see it used, that's not it at all. Somebody says something, and then a person who just happens to be a man disagrees and explains their disagreement. Oh, they're told to stop mansplaining. Basically, to shut up. The idea is that, I guess, if you're born with a penis, or I'm sorry, if you identify as a man, you have to pose everything in the form of a question. Why, I'd like to take stupid people for 500, Alex. Someone can, a wokey can literally tell you the moon's made out of cheese. And if you say, no, it's not, here's what it's actually made out of, and you start to explain it, and they can accuse you of mansplaining. It's a way of just shutting you up. But then if you call them out, like, no, you're just trying to shut me up. No, it just means wherever you're explaining something that somebody already knows. No, you don't know it, motherfucker. That's why I'm disagreeing with you. It's insane. Or like toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is basically whenever a man does anything that they don't want the man to do, such as disagree or be successful or have his own mind or work out. Quite literally, I have seen woke posts, I'll see if I can find a screenshot, telling men that if a man if he does not wear a jacket in cold weather, that the only reason that they do it is to intimidate women. And if a man dares says, no, just we don't get cold as easily, stop mansplaining. It's so fucking insane. But that's woke. That is what woke is. It's controlling people with nebulous rules that nobody can get a foothold on. And one day, it's going to eat these people alive. They're going to eat each other. And quite frankly, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch. And I'm going to keep taking screenshots. Who knows? Maybe I'll just start making collages of it. But don't let them fool you with this bullshit. Oh, well, woke, it just means this. And then they go and do it. So basically, they have outrageous opinions. They have outrageous agendas. But then whenever anybody calls them out, they immediately hide back into Bailey, the tower, and say, oh no, we're just being not racist. No, don't let them get away with it. Take screenshots of the crazy shit that they say, and whenever they try to hide behind that, if you're one of the people who like to try to engage with these assholes, just post that screenshot. Post a screenshot of them saying, oh, well, you have to sleep with these certain people, or you have to say this thing, or you have to do this other thing, or you're not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to do that. You have to wear these clothes, but you're not allowed to wear these other clothes. It's insanity, and I, for one, I don't know what to make of Elon, but quite frankly, I'm just having a blast seeing these people have their favorite toy being taken away from them, and they have to deal with the fact that there's other people out there in the world who think differently than them, who won't bow down to them. Because for so long they've lived in an echo chamber where everybody who would tell them, you're fucking wrong, and here's why, and they would get banned because they couldn't handle the fact that there were people out there who would disagree with them and could factually prove it. Anyway, if you actually listened through all this, I'd like to thank you very much. And as I've said so often before, don't let standing up by yourself stop you from standing up for yourself. Thank you for listening, and you have a great day.